A-level maths. Some hate it, some love it, but the question is, how do we exactly ace it? Before we move on to that, did you know that there was a study done by JCQ on the top A-level subjects by entry? Maths was comfortably first at more than 107,000 entries, making it the most popular A-level subject to date. When you go from GCSEs to A-levels, maths seems quite easy at first, but as soon as you start moving along your course and you progress in your syllabus, things get ugly really quick, especially in year 13. Trigonometry is horrible. That being said, it is not that bad and it's certainly not impossible either. If you're new to this channel, my name is Ayan. I started this channel 7 months ago to help students improve their grades by leveling up their productivity and just using better study techniques. So if you're into that, drop a sub and let's get back to the video. The thing with maths is that you're never going to find one question twice. For example, like in chemistry, you might find like a repeated question. There's no concept of that in maths. You might find a question that uses a similar technique to solve it, but you won't find the same question twice, giving you basically an infinite amount of questions to practice. So the question is, how did I get an A in A-level maths? Well, the first thing is notes. Now you might be saying, notes for maths? Let me explain it to you. Well, they're not exactly notes, but rather they're just a place where I write all of the formulas, all of the identities, and all of the different ways to answer questions. So it's basically an all-in-one help book for when it comes to maths. The notes build up over time as I solve different questions and find new ways to solve them. Basically, if a similar question comes up next time, I don't have to, look somewhere or in the marking scheme on how to solve it. I already have the technique written in my notes basically, and so it just allows me to understand the topic easier, and if any question comes up again, I can just simply solve it because I've already done it before and I've written it down somewhere. It also helps a lot when it comes to a day before the exam because I can just review everything. I have different types of questions on it, I have different ways to solve them, so it's basically like all in one help book, and a day before the exam just go through it and you should be good to go. This is one thing that I did for every single paper, whether that be, Pure 1, Pure 2, Pure 3, Pure 4, whatever it is. I did this for every single paper, and this can actually help you more than you can think. Well, it did for me because I ended up getting an A. Start small and then build them up. You can see mine as an example on the screen right now. And trust me, they really do help at the end. Now, the second thing is how to solve past papers when it comes to maths. This might be a bit different to what you do or what others do, but this is what works for me, so I'm just going to go ahead and tell that to you as well. Let's say I have a collection of 15 past papers that I want to do before an exam. The way I would distribute them is like this. The first 4 papers I would solve with someone else. In my case, that was Mr. Hassan's math channel, the absolute goat of edX or A-level math. When you first finish the syllabus and you go to do past papers and you open the first question, it just seems so scary and daunting to you that, like, I did not learn this in the textbook. So ideally you want to do it with someone else who can explain to you every single step, and so that you just you get the hang of the past papers by the time you're done 4. So that's what I would do 4 with someone else and not entirely on my own, understanding every single step of how the other person is doing it. So for the first 4 papers, have a video in front of you, have your paper, solve it properly, understand every single step, and then it should be much easier for you. The next 4 papers I would do question by question, not worrying about the time limit just yet. I'll have the marking scheme beside me, and after every single question I check whether I got it right or whether I got it wrong. If I did get it correct, I would move on to the next question. If I didn't though, I would thoroughly analyze the marking scheme, seeing where I went wrong, why I went wrong, and then if I still don't understand it from the marking scheme, then I would go ahead and watch a video, in my case Mr. Hassan, solving it and explaining each and single step. Now the questions that I got wrong, I would make a Google Sheets with it, or I would make an Excel sheet with it, just to note that in which paper, which question that I get wrong, so that when I'm like preparing for the final exams, I could come back and see, okay, this is the question I was doing wrong. Let me see if I can do it again. If you can, that's good. If you still can't, then that's something that you need to improve on. So that's how I would do the next 4 papers. Now, the next 7 papers that I do will be entirely by myself. What I mean by this is that I would do them under strict exam conditioning, which means that I would not have any distractions near me. I would tell my family that please do not disturb me in this time. I would have a water bottle beside me. I would basically do it in exam condition with strict exam timing as well, because time management is essential when it comes to mathematics. The aim is to mark myself as harshly as possible so that I know in the exam what is the maximum amount of marks I can lose. So for example, even if an examiner is feeling lenient, I might get 70 out of 75, but I will mark myself so that I get around 65. So I know that what is the maximum amount of marks I'm losing in that paper. Ideally, the aim would be to get the highest amount of marks possible, which is going to be like 73, 74, especially for P3 in year 13, because you need a high Threshold for that if you want to get A star. Now that we've done every single paper that we had in the start, which was 15, and we're getting, I'm going to assume 90% plus in every single paper, what we're going to do next to just solidify our base in maths and ensure that we're going to get, an A or an A star, whatever you want, is by doing this. You can do Solomon papers. Now, what are Solomon papers? Solomon papers are basically the hardest questions from the old syllabus that combine so that you can just, get an additional amount of practice so that you can pretty much ensure that you're going to get good marks. They are the hardest of hardest questions, and if you do them and you're getting good marks in them, you're basically guaranteed to get good marks in the real paper as well, because they are like much more harder than your actual paper. It's not necessary, it's just optional to ensure that you've done the maximum amount of work possible. Remember this: when it comes to maths, you can't memorize like other subjects such as chemistry. Past papers are going to be the only thing that help you when it comes to maths. The more past papers you do, the better chance you have of getting a better grade. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is time management. When it comes to A levels, the biggest problem that I faced was time management. You have so little time to do so much, and without proper practice beforehand, I'm afraid you might be cooked. So this is a technique that I use when it comes to time management. I used to try to aim to complete my papers within 1 hour and 15 minutes, and then have 15 minutes to just recheck all of the questions that I did. Now this might be really, really hard because it's easy when it comes to year 12, but when you're in year 13, it becomes much harder. The way you can save time for harder questions is by doing the easier questions first, and this is not something that comes naturally. You have to train yourself to do this. I remember back in year 12, I trained myself to do the first 5 out of 10 questions of a maths paper as soon as possible. So we had around 90 minutes to complete the whole paper. I used to complete the first 5 questions in around 20 to 25 minutes. I used to not take more than that, and my aim was basically to get those done as soon as I can so that I can focus on the harder questions at the end more. And at the start, I was taking around 35 to 40 minutes to complete those 5 questions. But by the end, when I had completed a lot of past papers, I was able to cut that time down to around 15 to 25 minutes. It depends on the paper again. But yeah, I did not waste any more time. I used to do them rapidly and just complete it and move on to the next part, which is the harder part of the question. Another thing is, if you're stuck on a question, please do not waste time on it, because the last thing you want to be doing is wasting time in a maths paper. You want to just, if you find yourself struggling on a question, let's say I have a question in front of me, I keep rereading the question, I'm still not understanding it after 2-3 minutes. Move on, leave that question. You should not care about that question anymore. Your aim should be to finish the paper so that once you're finished, you can come back to the question. I remember what happened, but that can be dangerous as well. You know why? Because when I was giving my Pure 1 paper, something happened. I left the question. I thought, I'd come back to it at the end. I'm done the paper, I finished the paper 10 minutes early. I'm just, relaxing. I'm looking back. I'm like, oh, I've done it. Then 5 minutes before, the time was up, I stumbled across, I forgot to do this question. Now, I only forgot it because I frankly skipped over that page and I had to rush. In the end, I did get I think 97 out of 100 in that paper. But still, that was the amount of panic I faced in that last 5 minutes just trying to complete it. Do not do that. Please recheck every single thing. Make sure that you're done with everything. And if you're leaving a question, make sure to mark it somewhere so that once you're finished, you can come back to whichever question you left. Another thing that helped me save a lot of time in the exam hall is basically memorizing any formulas or equations or identities there were. Especially for trigonometry in year 13, you have a lot of identities. You have the double angle formula, you have the addition formula, you have a lot of different stuff. Memorize them. Even though you will have them in the formula booklet, the amount of time you're going to waste just skipping through pages looking for the formula, it's best to just memorize it so that even those seconds count when it comes to math. So please do not waste your time flipping through pages in a book trying to find the exact same formula you need for that question. Do not waste it. Just memorize it. It won't take that long to memorize it. Just do it so that you do not waste that extra few seconds in the exam. Those extra few seconds can be the difference between you getting a B, A, or an A star. These are just some tips that can help you in maths. Of course, all the hard work is down to you and how you study, because even the teachers can only help you so much. I can only help you so much. All of the work is down to you, because the teachers will teach you the topic, but if you're not studying it, if you're not doing papers on it, if you're not doing questions, then it's really up to you, because you cannot blame someone else for your downfall. If you lock in and study hard, it'll become very, very easy for you. But if you don't, if you stay inconsistent and procrastinate, then it'll be really hard for you. It's not really rocket science, is it? If you're a Muslim fasting in Ramadan, please click here and watch this video on the best times to study when it comes to Ramadan. You can subscribe to the channel here. Please go ahead and leave a like on this video. I'll see you with another video very, very soon. Hopefully next week if I'm not inconsistent either. See you next week. Thank you and goodbye.